going through a series of events today, and I'm going to let Kendra kind of go through the schedule with you so you can kind of see what's going on, and we'll go from there. Okay.
I'm Kendra Rodriguez. I'm the project coordinator for the Immersive Learning Planning Grant. I work with Joanne. Joanne's our fearless leader on the project. And so this session today is brought to you by the Planning Grant and funded by the Planning Grant.
A couple of things. I'm really glad to see all of you that came today. I hope that you learned something new, that you can bring your classes over here and reserve some of these rooms for some immersive learning experiences. Pony Anderson, I do want to introduce her because she's the one that kind of runs all of these rooms and knows all the technology inside and out and writes the scenarios and works with a lot of government agencies for the outside people who come in and use these rooms. And we've talked about how can we, as part of the grant and including Pony, help you use it for your classroom so that we can also use it internally. If you have questions throughout the day on that kind of thing, I think Pony would be happy to answer you. I haven't asked her. She's been out, so I haven't seen her.
So I will turn it over to Bobby so we can get started. Bobby?
Hello. So, welcome. I want to talk a little bit about what we have done here in the political science program and how we've utilized the Disaster Management Institute, which is actually so this is a facility that is really reflective of politics, because this comes about. Ed Perlmutter, our congressman, helped to secure some funding for this particular room, which is a great, I believe I'm telling the story accurately, which is sort of a great, we call these earmarks in politics, and it's a great way in which we can utilize resources here, utilize technology here, and on a very low scale in terms of the number of students, create a very impactful sort of event. And I think that's one of the important things to keep in mind. As you look around, you see this room isn't very huge. And when we oftentimes contemplate immersive opportunities, we think they have to be big and they have to be grand to be effective. But in reality, this room on election night, at least for us, was exceptionally heated. It was a dynamic sort of event, and I think worked really well. So what I'm going to first do is kind of tell you what we came into and how we utilized it, and sort of how we looked at the room and thought these are strategic things and resources that we could be able to maximize. So I'm going to start off with the obvious here. What you see is you have multiple television screens showing obviously our two favorite news stations, CNN and Fox News. I'm being facetious, but nonetheless, there they are. And of course, on an election night coverage, that is fantastic. Because what we wanted to have is students to be able to sit here and watch live timing results that were coming in. And we made sure we kept it on two different sort of, I know the news is not ideological, but hypothetically, were these stations to be ideological stations? We wanted to be able to really what the night was about was having students first and foremost utilize our green room, which is right behind us here. You can kind of see it through those mirrored glasses. But that green room is actually a recording studio. And so what we did is we had students come in. We held this class on Tuesday night, so it wasn't a special time for them to come in. But the students came in and they did an election night sort of preview. And each student was assigned a different United States congressional district within the state of Colorado. And so how many congressional districts do we have? 7, that's right. So we have 7 congressional districts. There were 7 students with that particular project. And each student gave an analysis in terms of who they thought was going to win that district and why. They had to talk about the key issues that were important in that district. They had to talk about the demographics of the district, and we recorded it. And so as the results came in, sort of interspersed throughout the night, we would have a breaking news. And so what had just been recorded there would be broadcast on this large screen here. So the students got to actually see themselves on TV, which, as you know, is a frightening prospect. But they get to see themselves on TV, and they got to watch their analysis happen. And so I'm going to show you some pictures of that in just a few minutes. But that's what was going on behind the scenes there. Here, however, we had other students seated at these tables, each at an individual station, and what we had done is we uploaded the map of Colorado and the various precincts around the Aurora area. So we had uploaded through our GIS system the political lines that our particular communities were divided up in. And each student, so you would have one group here, and then you would have one group there, and vice versa. And what you notice is we discovered just about every single station had a telephone. And so what we did was we got the telephone numbers of the parties that were represented at those precincts. And so we had students, I'm sure, bugging them, but calling constantly saying, what are the numbers looking like now? And so what we were doing is having those students on the computer analyzing the data, looking at first and foremost, what are the demographics? How many Republicans and how many Democrats and how many independents are registered in those districts? Where do Democrats and Republicans live in those districts? And then as the results were coming in, they could plug in the data. And so what we did is we looked at those poll numbers, and then the students could say, because they have their different political views, but what they could say is, wait a second, Republican numbers are coming in heavily in Aurora. But then we'd say, is it going to go Republican or Democrat? And of course, Aurora went Democratic. And so it was a fascinating sort of thing to let them see when these data points come in and when they're looking at analyzing results, you're going to see a lot of numbers hit you at first that may or may not be referencing what the real turnout's going to be. And so part of it was there's an excitement behind campaign science to this. Yeah. This is why we make predictions the way we do, is there's a significant amount of math and research that goes into it, and so we can have some validity in terms of what we're looking at. And part of it was letting students understand their own power and potential in terms of reading data, that they can look at something themselves and not have to have someone else interpret the data for them.
Obviously, we have the cubes here. We can divide that up into 12. We can have 4 in one. It can be all one, just the way you see it. This is a touch table, and you guys are welcome to come up, all of you, and take a look at this and what it can do. It's actually a Microsoft Surface, so it's a little different from a touch. So you guys, pictures. We can put pictures up here. These are different drills that we've done here at the college, so you can throw this stuff up here. And everything is just easily manipulated. Yeah, go ahead and touch it, you guys.
I want one in,
It does at the coffee table, right?
I know, I want one in my basement instead of a foosball.
You guys, this is a resource and an asset for you guys to use and
crazy. I don't have an iPad,
help
so I
to
don't
teach your students.
Can anybody think of ways they could use this in their class?
I could think I teach anatomy. We're taking
There you go.
dissection.
Honestly, really, you could like
use it instead of Facebooking during lectures.
They could,
yeah, absolutely. You could put the human body on here and they could travel like through the circulatory system virtually using this. How cool would that be?
That would be cool.
I know, there's so many different things. So you guys just, as we walk around and we look at this stuff, think about the different things that you can do to bring your students in. It's not...
Pony is a scenario building machine, so if you have just a little bit of an idea, go to Pony with it and she'll help you develop it.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is a place, I heard somebody say in their objectives that you would be interested in making this into a work environment. That's a great idea. That's exactly what we're working with workforce development on. So we can turn this into a call center, for instance, and give the students, give the workforce development people, they're calling, they're trying to sell something, and we're just sitting back here. We're watching everything they're doing on these screens. We can hear everything they're saying over the speakers that are in here, and we can hang up on them. We can give them some of those real tools that they might need, things that they're really going to face in the real world. And think about it, we can put them in a home environment. They go in, they've been at work all day, the house isn't what it ought to be, the kids are crying, how are they going to go in? So we can give them some of those real life tools that they might need just to survive, right? So,
project itself is called CSI Aurora, and we have participation of paralegals, so we also have law and order CCA. But so far, all of our crime scenes have involved a few different locations. One, an indoor location, and we've used the house simulation room, as well as an outdoor crime scene. And these two scenes are connected through evidence.
I've been teaching in the academy for 20 years, CCA's Police Academy. And I've been teaching a criminal justice course here for the last 2 years, I think, in conjunction with Elizabeth and Gary. It has worked out really well. So I've been developing and putting out mock crime scenes for the Police Academy for a long time. And we just incorporated a piece of that, or into her idea as a piece of that. As crime scene investigators, we don't care who done it. What we care about is finding the physical evidence and then being able to process that physical evidence and giving that over to the detectives. So we have seated their evidence. There are actually 4 rooms in here that have evidence in them. The bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen, and the living room. Almost.
Knock them down, step on them.
Wait, are you supposed to pick those up?
What's that?
Next week is our mock trial, and while we are waiting for mock trial space to be built, we are using just a large room here on campus, but hopefully next year, Margaret Euchner has a grant that is currently building a simulated mock trial room, so we'll be able to use that space to conclude our crime scenes next year.
Is that it? Oh yeah, okay. So you guys, this space right here, those doors open up to the great outside, so we actually have a rec car that we can shove in here. This is a space where you need to think about how can you integrate your students, because we use a lot of different students from around campus inside here. First I'll tell you about the technology. If you look up, you'll see there's an awful lot of speakers. We have 4 different decks, so we can play 4 different sounds simultaneously. So you can hear an airplane there, and it goes out in the distance, or birds chirping, or thunder, or whatever it is that you're going to hear. We can shove in red cars, that sort of thing, bring in a forklift, whatever we need to. This is kind of an industrial feel up here with the catwalk space, that sort of thing. Think about ways that you could use that. Some of the things that we've done in the past is you're thinking about your own discipline, how to incorporate it. If we do just a simple auto accident in here, we bring in drama students. We've got a lady maybe pinned underneath a car. The baby's against the pole. She was eating breakfast with her baby. The baby's against the pole with an open head injury. And the guy that hit them is slumped over the wheel. That's pretty real, right? We can bring in photography students because crime scene photographer or their news comes with a photographer. We've got English students, we've got photography students, we've got drama students, we've got fire academy students, we've got police academy students, we've got paramedics. I mean, we've just put 7 different disciplines together on one space. How cool is that? And the things that you guys need to think about that you can give them in simulation, you can give them that critical thinking piece we talked about. I'm just going to keep hammering these pieces. That's where they take the information from here and put it here. Really important to be successful in the real world, right? You can give them leadership skills. You can give them team building skills. You're teaching them, they're opening up their eyes. Instead of looking at education like this, I'm going to be a doctor, and down the track they go. Now we're forcing them to look to their left and look to their right. What are other people doing, and why am I taking this English class? You know, we're giving them some relevance to their educational process, even if it's not their passion. Make sense? So let's think about it. Want to see another one?
Yeah.
Okay.
You will be able to, you were in the DMI, because we'll have limited seating in here. For example, if the Court of Appeals comes and we can have students and everything, we can project it into that room and they can have lifetime to see what's going on in here. There will be wood all behind the judge, and then depending on how much money we can raise and get, there will be wood all around the courtroom, at least up to 3 feet high. Academy. It's really weird to do it in a court, in a classroom. It just doesn't work. I have a class that I teach where we do trials. It doesn't work very well for them. EMS students, they're the first responders. They're the first ones on the scene. It's just, I think there are opportunities for so many people. Obviously my paralegal students, my criminal justice students, the social sciences. I can think of, my list is long of people that can use this. So, win it, I will build it and you will come.
With the criminal justice stuff, is sort of a lab in eyewitness testimony or just behavioral observation for people. So if you can record everything that's going on, ask everybody what they saw, and then show them what was actually there.
Yeah.
And so see how eyewitness, accounts don't necessarily match up.
And they could observe the culture and interact with the culture and write their ethnography on the culture that's being portrayed. So I make them go out and do like real subcultures, but this might be interesting to do like on a culture that they couldn't see here.
Right.
But you could simulate them seeing it.
So you guys, when you're thinking about using these spaces for simulation, there's a lot of different types of simulation. Just think about it like this. One thing you can do, and I like what you were saying, Bobby, because you could use it like a tabletop exercise is one, where you assign different roles to everybody in that hospital environment. This one's going to be purchasing, and this one's going to be admin, and this one's going to be whatever, and you assign those, this one's operations and this one's logistics or whatever it's going to be, and you can assign them all different tables, but ultimately in the end everything has to justify, and that can happen up here. And so you can really give them some real life relevance just by using a tabletop exercise. I like it. So you've already prepared them ahead of time, so then they come in and they're going to run the thing with little to no instruction because they've already been prepared. This is their real world experience now. Everything gets recorded, but then when you're done, there's something where it's where you play it back, and the debriefing is really the most important part. And there's almost an art to it where you ask one open-ended question and then just shut up. You can ask them something as simple as what went right, and you'll watch the whole group will sit there and not say a word, or what went wrong. Same thing, they'll just sit there. But if you wait 2 or 3 minutes, you will be blown away at the dialogue that'll take place and the learning that'll start taking place if you let your students start work this out and pick the pieces out and what they got out of it and where they can improve and where they missed it. And they're actually, in a way, kind of educating themselves. They're pulling those critical pieces of thinking out and applying them. So it's great. It works. It works.
Is if we could build off of the existing scenarios. So for instance, if we have election night, we're already running, so why can't we have, English show up and all these other people? But the problem might be is getting the word out and saying, hey guys, there are educational opportunities available, even though this is primarily, poli-sci, or even though it's primarily the police academy. Just letting people know that, hey, you guys can dovetail onto this thing, and we can incorporate you already within our existing scenarios as we build out and can create our own. So to me, that's just like a ready-made opportunity for
That's a
everyone.
great idea. We also, you'll have the information of what they've already done. So if you find one that you want to join up with, you know who to contact, or if you have ideas that, you could work with them. You also can steal some of the ideas. Maybe there are some that were done at other schools that we go, wow, what a great idea, and we decide to develop it ourselves, either by if within our school, across the disciplines, or even with other colleges, kind of like what started as the Apprentice. I don't know if that's what it's still called, but it's just gotten huge, and it's a really, really cool project. So those will all be available. Probably, we have the conference scheduled for September 13th at the Lowry campus at the conference center, and it's system-wide, and all 33 people from all 33 grants have been invited to present. And so far we've got 15 that I believe have responded that they will present, and we will have a keynote speaker that day who is very, very good at immersive and game-based learning. So it should be, mark your calendars for that one. If you're interested at all, I think you would gain a lot from that day.
13th.
September 13th, and we'll be sending more information about it. I think we've sent a save the date, and as it gets closer, you'll be hearing more about it.
Is that all day?
Yes, it is all day. It is an all day, yeah. Lunch provided, breakfast, coffee.